This is Courtney Mason, and this is the Millennial Dreamers Podcast, where I profile successful millennial entrepreneurs, creatives, artists, and thought leaders who are navigating the unconventional life of their dreams and profiting from their passion. I also share inspiration and career tips to help you take the leap of faith and go after your dreams. There's something to be said about a well-dressed gentleman and lady, and today's guest has a lot to say about them because he personally sees to it that his clients step out in style for every occasion. Brandon BJ Gray is a designer and celebrity stylist who has rapidly grown his fashion house Grayscale in a few short years. In today's episode, he explains how he got his start in the world of fashion, how he was able to land clients like Insecure's J. Ellis, Neyo, Tank, Jussie Smollett, and Lena Waithe, just to name a few. He also explains the process of having a custom bespoke suit made, as well as simple and cost-effective tweaks that we can make to our own wardrobe. With his tips, be prepared to take your wardrobe to the next level. Let's get into it. Millennial Dreamers, today on the podcast, we have Brandon BJ Gray. BJ, who hails from Los Angeles, California, is a celebrity designer, entrepreneur, and the CEO of his very own luxury boutique men's fashion house, Grayscale, where he specializes in bespoke men's evening wear, suiting, and outerwear, as well as image consulting. BJ has worked with some of our favorite entertainers and athletes and is helping the well-dressed gentleman step out in style, one custom suit at a time. BJ, welcome to the podcast, or should I say, welcome back to the podcast.
Listen, every time you give that introduction, I just feel like I need to put you in my pocket and make sure that I bring you around with me everywhere. You just make me feel like I'm actually doing something out here.
You are doing something plus more, and I want the listeners to know BJ and I have tried to have this interview multiple times, but as luck will have it, I like to say that I like to call it, what is the saying? I can't even think of what the saying is, but if anything can happen, it will happen. And I've had all types of technical issues, but he's been rolling with me, and like we can hop back on and recreate
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law, that's what it is. I was like, gosh, Murphy's Law is in play. But thank you again for agreeing to like come back on, and we're just gonna recreate the magic. So
the magic is always here. We got it.
We got it. So
we got it.
So, but to reiterate, I'm really excited to have you on because, as I mentioned before when we were talking, I like to have entrepreneurs from all different industries on, just so we can, get a wide array of the different industries. And so I wasn't completely familiar with men's bespoke suits until last year. I went on a trip, like a 2-week vacation to Thailand with my boyfriend at the time. And one of the main things that he wanted to do was get custom suits made in Thailand for his birthday. So we went to this company, and they were able to create 2 suits for him. And I saw basically the process of how it goes. We went there about 3 or 4 times, and when we left, he had 2 dope suits. And I'm always noticing women and men who have really well dressed and have really great fitting suits. So that makes me pretty excited to talk about you, because now I have someone who can really give us the ins and outs about the process. So without further ado, for our listeners who are unfamiliar with you and the work that you do, give them a glimpse into your background.
Sure. So my background starts actually in finance, believe it or not. That was where Grayscale kind of was born out of. What happened was I used to be a bank manager in Washington, D.C., and constantly my clients would comment on the way that I dressed. And some of them would go a step further and even ask and say, hey, do you think you can put some stuff together for me? I'm going to this event. I'm going to White House Correspondents' Dinner, or I'm going to the inaugural ball or something of the sort. And I would say, yeah, sure. So I would put a couple of looks together. And then eventually my clients at the bank started to become my clients as far as styling. And styling was fun, but it got to a point where my clients wanted to push the limits, and I couldn't find those things that I wanted to push the limits for. So I said, you know what? I'm going to create it. So my girlfriend and I went on vacation to Paris, And as soon as we stepped off the plane, it just felt like serendipity. I knew this was where I should be. So to give you the timeline, we left, like my birthday is August 31st. So we got there, we were there for 2 weeks, and I came back to DC on September 14th. I put my 2 weeks in at my job, and then on October 4th, I moved to Paris.
See, and
It was just, yeah.
that's crazy. And what the thing that amazes me about it is because a lot of millennials, a lot of us romanticize the idea of like taking the leap, and you want to have that intense spark of passion and like just this precise inspiration where you can walk into your job and say, "Listen, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice and I'm like chunking the deuces." So I find that incredible that you actually did that and wanted to, like you say, like, listen, this is what's happening, I'm moving to Paris. So what was
it
it
was
that
my passion. Yeah. I was so passionate about it at that point. I mean, if you came into my office to talk about anything finance, it's probably some way I was able to turn it around to fashion. It was just, the conversations were always, I was throwing up fashion to the point where I knew that it had to be what I wanted to do, because I wanted the intersection for my purpose and my passion. I didn't necessarily want to let time to keep passing me by, and I wasn't doing something that I was overly passionate about, that I was on fire about. Right. And I knew fashion was that thing, so I just had to figure out how to integrate. And I do want the listeners to know, I mean, it was very strategic for me at the same time. Although the jump was sporadic, that did not mean that my savings were not there. Gotcha. It did not mean that I did not have the necessary steps already in order to be able to do something like that. So God works in mysterious ways like that. He sets you up for seasons to be able to, a season of high harvest, to maybe be able to deal with the season of low harvest, because that's a season that's going to be you planting seeds. So you might not necessarily be able to yield what's coming from that immediately, but eventually something will come. So during that time in Paris, as an apprentice, I wasn't making any money. We actually bartered. I'll tell you, when I moved there, it was hard for me to find somebody to work with me. My French was shabby, and it was on the day that I was searching for people that I had pretty much given up for the day. I said, let me go get a coffee, and I heard an English accent, and I got excited. I started talking to the gentleman, and he said, I'm right here at my parents' shop. They make clothes, and I got uber excited. I was like, oh, okay, somebody that makes clothes. And then I was like, well, what type of clothes do they make? He was like, they make nurses' uniforms. And then my energy went all the way down again, and I was like, dang, I thought I had it. And then he followed the sentence up right with, but I make suits. And I was just like, wait, what? He was like, yeah, I've been making suits for a while, and I'm actually opening up a store. So what happened was, when I was an apprentice, it was on a barter system where I was able to show him all of the skills that I had gained from being a manager, from running profit and loss, and learning how to read books and things of that sort. I gave him those skills in turn to learn how to design, vector sketch, and all of those things. So it was a perfect moment.
That's like straight serendipity that happens like that, because what are the chances of you hearing someone who speaks an English accent, or that you're like, okay, this person, they may be American, or they something like that, and
right.
You automatically can connect with them. But I just wanted to take a step back. Did you know anyone before you went to Paris? When you said, I'm going to move here and I'm going to do this, was there anyone that you could even connect with at all? Or was it just, I'm going out here with, I know that I'm able to create whatever it is that I want to create, and I believe in my talent, so this is what I'm doing?
Yeah, no, it wasn't anyone out there that was like a point of contact, or somebody that I was able to like say, like, can you put me in contact with someone, anything of that sort. We just had to figure it out, figure out what it looked like for the next step. And I think that was just all like God's timing, everything that was, when your steps are ordered, each thing will kind of like come into place. And I really feel, as I look back on my story now, those were moments where I felt like that was God saying, I got you, like, keep going. This is the right path. Because, that type of thing doesn't happen all the time. That's very, very much, an anomaly. So when I'm dealing with stuff like that, when I always feel, I really take energy from like the universe, God, whoever you guys want to call a higher being for yourself. I really take those points in things happening in my life where I say, oh, this is a sign. This is me saying, this is somebody saying, keep going. This is something saying, this is where you should be. this is the moment where you should be in right now. Even with us trying to record multiple times, it might have been something that we needed to say that only could have happened after the time that we were initially planned to record, you know?
Right.
So I don't take it as a negative thing. I take it as more so it was meant for us to be doing this recording at this time.
Yes, yes. I believe the same thing. It's like you have to know that there's a reason behind any like thing that happens. Something good comes of it. So it's the perspective that you have and looking at it through a different lens and not saying, oh, this happened to me, woe is me, but then just really taking it and making it to be a positive and seeing what's the lesson in it. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. And
Right.
so how long were you in Paris through that whole apprenticeship process where you were learning everything?
It was 1 year.
Okay, okay. So a
Yeah.
full year in Paris. Now I'm kind of jealous about that because I've only been once, and now I'm like, I want to go back. Paris is just amazing. I can't even talk enough about it. But so you were there for a year. So what was the process like coming back and working on your own thing once you got back to the United States?
So coming back to the United States felt like, I guess what a woman maybe would equate to like postpartum. It was a little bit, exactly, because just like you just said, you know, being a little bit jealous, like being out there for so long, it felt just normal. At that point, I started to think like, okay, well, I could have a life across the pond and maybe come back to the States, but it wasn't really my plan. But when I decided to come back, I had put on my mind, okay, how am I going to infiltrate the fashion scene? And there were some designers and there were some stylists that I knew. And I simply reached out. I think humility has to be a big part of your journey. And, you know, I reached out and I went from being a manager managing multiple branches to an assistant for somebody. I reached out to multiple stylists and I said, hey, man, I'm back in the States. I'm back in LA. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to, you know, what the next step is going to be for me. But I would love to kind of like work with you and find my area in the industry. I just wanted to meet people because I knew if I was able to meet people that eventually the brand would be in people's mindset. Even if it wasn't in the forefront, it would be in the back of it. So when I started to meet people, it was easy. I didn't even it didn't even feel like it didn't even feel like a struggle. It was seamless. I actually reached out to a frat brother of mine. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Hey.
And I reached out to a frat brother and I told him, and he said, hey, man, come work with me. I'm doing this shoot. Come work with me. And I worked with him for a year and a half. And during that whole time, every person that he introduced to me to, I know this person isn't everybody's favorite person anywhere, but that's the best person I can align it with. Every person he introduced me to, I felt like Kanye. When Kanye first came into the game, Kanye used to always say, yo, I made this beat, but I rap too. You know, because people didn't know Kanye as a rapper when he first came. They knew him as a producer. So when I first came into fashion and styling, I would say, yo, I'm a stylist assistant, but I design too. And some people would say, oh, that's cool. And then other people would say, what you got? Let me see it. So when those people would say, what you got? Let me see it. I would be like, oh, snap. I would feel a little flustered.
Right.
Because I wasn't necessarily there at that time. You know, it was something that I was more so thinking about executing, but I wasn't there. So I started to meet people. And I'll tell you, the two people who were gung-ho about the brand from the jump were Jay Ellis and Jussie Smollett. You know, whatever feelings you may have about Jussie, he was gung-ho for my brand from jump. He always called me a young Tom Ford, and he was so invested in wearing a young black designer. He wore Grayscale 24/7. Jay Ellis wore Grayscale 24/7. Anytime they were going somewhere, they wore Grayscale. And it was just a beautiful thing to see them support. And they were literally the diving board because after those two, everything seemed to fall like dominoes. Everybody got in line. Everybody saw the brand. They saw the vision. They wanted to buy in. They wanted to be a part of it. And as a result of that, being in the right place at the right time with the right people with alignment, everything just started to happen so seamless. And you know what? Sometimes when people say like, oh, you got to struggle, you got to go through the fire, you got to be at your lowest point, you have to sometimes take a step back and say, hey, if that's your story, that's cool. But that's not my story. That's not how my life has worked because my steps have been ordered. and I've listened to what my next step from my higher being is telling me to do. And as a result, I haven't had those struggles. I've had bouts of success in large portions because it's been, I really feel like it's been in alignment for me.
Yes, and one of the big things that I took from what you were saying, first from even just getting back over here and starting to work within the entertainment industry, was the humility that it takes to say, you know what, I'm going to work my way up. I will work as an assistant and just observe and see, help someone else's brand and what they're doing and really understand the ins and outs, and then gives you a foot in the door to meet all of these people. Because that was one of my questions to ask,
Exactly.
like, how did you get connected with so many people within the entertainment industry? Because I saw Jay Ellis, I saw that you work with Jay Ellis, and even Lena Waithe, like she's absolutely
Hmm.
incredible. So just seeing that, it's a domino effect. Like, once you kind of have patience, we
Humility.
mentioned humility. Have
Humility. Yeah, you have.
hmm
I tell you, Courtney. Listen, I'll be very very candid. I went from making six figures to barely two. Like a lot of the
hmm
work that you're doing is, you're doing a lot of grunt work. You're learning how to do things, and as a result, there's not a high demand for that, and there's definitely an oversaturation for it. So
right.
there's a million people that want to do your same job that are willing to do it for whether they got daddy's money or whatever it is. But there's people like, I'll be frank, our skin color maybe necessarily can't afford to do that forever. We can't we
Yes.
can't afford to assist somebody forever just because we have life to just to we have to pay our bills. Not no one else is taking care of them for us.
Right.
So that moment was, I had to take a step back and say, hey, if you're going to do this, do it right. Because anybody who does anything in any industry, if they did not come up and learn how to do that properly from the right channels, if they just said, I think I'm good enough to do this at the highest point, and then they just tried to jump in, there's been a lot of turmoil. There's been a lot of, you didn't pay your dues,
Right.
That's just what it boils down to. You didn't pay your dues. Like,
Yep.
you had to be in the trenches. You had to learn. You had to come up from the bottom. And when you learn from the bottom up, you get so much more. You get so much more as opposed to coming in at a high level. That was the type of manager that I was. I was always in the trenches with my employees. So when it was time for me to be in the trenches as an employee, it wasn't hard because I was already there.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, you can't cheat the hustle. That's all. That's pretty much what it's saying. It's like
Hello.
you cannot cheat the hustle. You cannot skip the steps. There is no microwave version of the success. And I think sometimes we get into that mindset and we feel like, you see people maybe blow up out of the blue, excuse me, and you think like, oh, they came out of nowhere, and it's like you don't know what these people have been doing to prepare themselves for this moment where you're just recognizing what they're doing and the excellence that they're able to perform it. There was some work that went into place in that. And so never think that you can cheat the hustle, never think that you can skip steps, because you're only doing yourself a disservice in the end, because then when you get to that point that you think you want to be, you won't have the skills necessary to
Hmm.
elevate. And so, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Jay Z said it the best. People want to emulate the outcome and not the process.
Yes.
Like, I always think about when people watch television shows or basketball wives or whatever it is, and like, for example, a girl will be like, oh, I want a Birkin bag. I want this. I want that. Well, yes, you see them on television with those things, but you don't know what goes on behind the scenes for them to be able to afford that.
Exactly.
Some people may think that a lot of things are just handed to people, but there's some people out here are spending their hard earned dollars. So
Mhm.
I never want to think about, I never want to compare myself to what someone else is doing because my blessing is not their blessing. All I can do is run my race and know what I did. And I can live my life an example. So when I show and tell my story, it's nothing about being boisterous. It's about me being able to use platforms like this to say, okay, um, we can use this as an example. We can use this as kind of like guidelines. Somebody has to do this because it's other people are doing it.
Mhm. Absolutely. I agree with it. I agree wholeheartedly. And you speak my language. I told you that before. I'm like, you really just kind of we speak the same language. It's like we're in it to do it the right way. And so I love that about all the things that you're doing and what you stand for. But to bring it back to exactly what you're doing for those listeners who may be unfamiliar, like I was before last year, with the process of creating a custom suit and what goes into it, what does that process look like? If someone was thinking, okay, I might want to reach out to BJ to maybe have a piece created for me, what does that entire process look like?
So we do a 3 fitting process, which kind of consists of first just a meeting of the minds. I love to be like on a vibe, right? I want us
Mm-hmm.
to have a couple of in my showroom. We got some libations in here. We got some wine
Yes.
in here for the ladies. Whatever it is, I want them always to be able to be on the same page. So I always start the consultation out just getting to know you, getting to know your personality, because that's going to come through in what you want designed, right? And how you want something to be a reflection of you. Your clothes say something about you before you open your mouth. So
Mm-hmm.
when I hear you open your mouth, I know what you want your clothes to say, right?
Yeah.
So we our first consultation is we discuss the fabrics that you want to choose, the look that you want to go for, style of jackets, lining, all the way down to a button option. How many buttons do you want on your sleeves? Do you want them to be functional? And then your pants and things of that sort. So the first consultation is literally just the nuts and bolts, us getting a foundation for us to build on. The second one, you're coming back, your piece is created halfway through, and we're kind of like seeing what it looks like on you. And if we need to do any alterations or changes, by the time we get to your third fitting, you should be able to walk out of here looking like $1,000,000.
Nice. That doesn't, it takes about roughly 3 to 4, depending on how many additional fittings maybe that you have to do, but it could take.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And the timing, does it take weeks or
Okay, so I will say something about dollars there. If the money is there, because we're in LA and a place where such high demands, I've created pieces in 3 days. But that
really?
is at a very very high cost. Usually pieces take 3 to 4 weeks to be created, and then over those fittings, we'll have the fittings over that time frame. But if it's a necessity, if it's a fire, I do hold a fire extinguisher in the house.
I love that because that makes sense because I'm pretty sure it's like you have these awards, events that have to
Exactly.
go to, and people are like, "Listen, I'll pay you to focus solely on what I need you to focus on right now." Um,
Exactly. And if you're willing to do so, by all means, I'm willing to accept.
I'm with you on that. It's like, listen, I pay me what is necessary, and I got you covered. But you also
Right.
do consulting as well, right? So image consulting. So tell me a little bit about how that works in the process of transforming. Say if a guy wanted to have, they like, I have these pieces in my closet that I've worn for ages, and they just don't speak to who I am now. I've evolved as a person, as a man, as a woman, and I want to change that. So, what does the image consulting process look like?
So image consulting is not just based on fashion. That also works with if you're going to be in public speaking and working with your diction or crutches, things of that sort, teaching you how to work in a Toastmasters type setting where you're
Mm-hmm.
learning to articulate, learning to slow down to be able to have conversation without and maybes and pauses and things of that sort. So that's another portion of image consulting too that doesn't necessarily get highlighted as much. Also, the people who want to do the closet consultations when they've had transformations in their lives, what we'll do is we'll have a small meeting where we discuss what you want to be and what you want to look like. We'll dive into your closet and say, this won't work, this will work, this may be changed a little bit, can work. Because a lot of people think, you have to recreate the wheel. I'm not here to make you spend thousands of dollars if we don't have to. If it still has the possibility to work, then let's retailer it. Let's alter it. Let's make it a little bit more modern. Let's make it still a staple piece, because some people have great things in their closet. They just don't know how to use them anymore. They don't know how to implement them anymore. So it's your job to bring a fresh pair of eyes and a fresh perspective on what it is that they want to do. And 9 times out of 10, you're simply doing that. You're opening their eyes and saying, "Oh, I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about wearing that like that. Or I didn't even think about using that old piece," especially for my guys and ladies that are in the demographic for like that 35 to 45. They
Mm-hmm.
have pieces that have transcended maybe even a decade or so, or something of that sort. And they think this is too old. But lo and behold, vintage is 5 seconds behind bringing that same exact piece back out in a more modern way. So we can keep that, and that could be a classic. So when people ask you like, "Oh, is this Zara?" Actually, this is old school Purple Label. But no, Zara came out with a new version of this. You know, like so that's things
Right.
that I love. I love recreating pieces. When I started styling, there's a place in Long Beach, California. When I first started out, being interested in fashion, I used to go to this place in Belmont Shores, and they have clothes every first Saturday piled to the ceiling, and they're
Oh,
all vintage clothes. And you literally take your shoes off and you climb in a pile, and then you get the pieces and they weigh them, and then that was the first time I ever had vintage Ralph Lauren. That was the first time that I ever had vintage Saint Laurent. And it was pieces that I got for about $20, $30 because they were just in a big pile. I would take them, I would tailor them, and they would fit my body like they were made for me, and no one would know any different. So before I had the dollars, I had the vision.
yes. I mean, we need to have something like that around here in New Orleans because I don't know of anything that's similar to that. But it's true. Just yesterday, the funny thing was I went out to like the nail salon, and the lady was like, "I love your dress," and she was like, "Where did you find it?" I said, "Actually, this is my mom's dress," and she was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I dive into my mother's closet whenever she. And I mean, she
Hello.
has stuff that's like." She's had it for years, but we're like the same size. And so I'm like, listen, I can use that piece, put a belt on it, and do, something like that. So I'm totally with you on that. But I'm also the type of person that I look at stuff that's in my closet. Someone else might be like, you have a lot of things. And I'm like, I've, I
I have
don't,
nothing.
yeah, exactly. In so many words, I have nothing because I've
Yeah, one
seen
thing
it
I
so
do,
much.
yeah. One thing that I always try to do is every 3 months or so, I do a closet purge, and I really feel like it's microcosm of life. I do a closet purge, and I get rid of. I'm talking about real stuff too. I'm giving the last closet purge I did. I got rid of Gucci loafers and everything of that sort. But what I do is I don't give them to somebody within the same, maybe like realm as me financially. I have a lot of frat brothers that are like social workers and they
Hmm.
work in group homes, things of that sort. So I'll always take it over to them. I'll always make sure that I give it to them. And what that does for me is two things. One, it makes sure that I'm keeping ties to, what I used to be, what it used to look like when I grew up and I didn't have money. And I used to love when I was able to receive things from those who did. So I want to make sure I always keep that cycle open. And then two, it gives me the ability to kind of have a blank canvas again. Because if you have so much in that room or so much in your closet, it may feel cluttered. Once you clean that out, you can have a blank canvas and get started again. And when
Yeah.
you do that, you'll get new ideas. I always think of giving, even if whether it's clothes, knowledge, whatever it may be, I always think of it in the sense of a gas station, right? If your car is full, you never need to get any gas, right? It is
Hmm.
our job to run our gas all the way out because I am giving gas to someone else. My knowledge is the gas. So when my tank is full, I don't have the ability to receive any more gas. I
Hmm.
have to give the gas, I have to give the knowledge to others, I have to give the clothes to others in order to be blessed and be able to receive it from the other end. So it's a cyclical type thing. If you give, you'll get it back. Malachi says that for you. You'll if you can apply the Bible things to your
Hello.
regular life, it'll be a lot more, it'll stick with you a lot more. So in the sense of the closet, girl, clean it out. Get
I
it out of
know.
there, give it to
Listen.
somebody, and give it to somebody, and you'll be blessed as a result. You'll definitely get more pieces. You'll definitely get more things. All of that, and
Yeah.
that's the microcosm of life.
That's true, and I actually have a because this is a time where we're all spring cleaning for the most part. People are like, "All right, out with the old, in with the new. Let's do something different," because I'm tired of this. So I have started that process, but I'm like, okay, since I definitely record in my closet, I'm actually as I'm talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
like leaning over, looking at things like, "Yep, you can get rid of, you can get rid of that, you can get rid of that." So I'm with you on that because it's just that is the process of it. So I'm taking your word. You're helping me currently as we're talking. But one
Good.
thing also that wanted to say was just like, of course, as millennials, because it's a Millennial Dreamers podcast, so it's a lot of young people who are listening, and we all are probably trying to find you. We have our side hustles, we're working our jobs, and we're doing different things. So you may not have a lot of financial resources. Like you mentioned before, it doesn't have to be expensive to make those tweaks. So what's one like small fashion tip that you can give someone that's listening that's like, I don't really have the funds right now to do anything drastic. I can't really get a suit made, or I can't really just get rid of everything, but I want to look trendy and fresh and new. What's something that they
Right.
can do?
Something that I always did before I had the funds to do it was thrifting. I used to thrift like crazy. I would always go to Salvation Army. A higher form of thrifting is estate sales. If the people are familiar with that, usually somebody has passed and the family members don't want to take the things because they don't want memories or things of that sort. If you can find an estate sale in your area that has clothes, if it's an estate sale, because estates are the people who have a little bit more funds, it's a good chance that you're going to find some nice things in there. And if you can find nice things, if it's somewhere within a realm of your body type, tailor that thing. Tailor that thing. Thrifting, tailor that thing. Because we're in a generation and a time right now where things can be emulated so easily. We have cookie cutter brands that can produce something within 5 seconds once they see it. I'm not going to say which brand, but
Right.
you know what I'm
We
saying?
know.
Once a big brand, once a big brand does something, they could reproduce it within 5 minutes. It'd be right up on their website. So how do you create individuality? When you're thrifting and you're finding older pieces, these are one of a kind. These are stuff that people are not going to necessarily be right on the next thing. And it's a conversation piece. It's all in your pride, how you wear it, how you stretch your stuff. Just like you said, when you take your mom's thing and you put that belt on with it, that's a whole new piece.
Yep.
And the way that you own that when you're walking down the street, that confidence level you have in that piece is what makes people question. I can put you in Zara or I can put you in Zegna. It doesn't matter. If you don't have the confidence for it, you're not going to strut.
Yes.
It really depends on you. So I would say, one, find out what it is that you really like, not what the media and not what your friends are telling you to like. Find out what you really like, and then go find the best version of that is not available to everybody. So it's going to take a little bit more of work, but things like I said, Salvation Army, Goodwill, estate sales, you can live and die by those things.
Yeah, and don't be ashamed to do that, because I actually have gone a couple of times to Goodwill just to see. And actually, I work in a different area where it's like affluent people that live in the area. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm going to go to this Goodwill because they
Exactly.
probably, have some like different pieces, things that wouldn't necessarily be in some of the other ones. And I have found things before that I was like, what is this doing in here? Like, why would someone just give it away? But I mean, people get tired of it. Like you say, you've purged your closet and got rid of name brand things as well. So it's like, don't feel like thrifting is something that's just not, you're like, oh, some people might think like, oh, I don't want to go and get people's hand-me-downs. It's like, well, that's what pretty much all the cool kids are doing, because, and you don't want to look like everybody else.
Yeah, you want to show some individuality. So don't be afraid to thrift. And just like you said, that's a good key point too. Try to do it in a different area. If there's an affluent area, then that means that's an affluent thrift store. Then that means that thrift store is probably getting a lot higher class stuff than what the thrift store in the hood is getting.
Right. Yeah, it's like, I don't care about going in at all. I'm just like, all right, I'm pushing my little buggy, and they're probably like, what are you doing in here with your with your suit on?
Shopping it up. I'm
yes.
supermarket sweeping in this thing.
I love
a
that.
lot of millennials might be too young to not know what supermarket sweep is, but
if they don't, then it's a shame, because we all know the classic shows. So let's just say that. But so to circle back to some like career focused questions, because a lot of people listening are on their own entrepreneurial journey, and if anyone were specifically interested in the fashion industry and kind of breaking in to do something similar to you, or just anything within the fashion industry, what would you suggest, like a small step that they can do right now to give them that foot in the door?
I think with the fashion industry is the easiest thing that I can boil it down to, because everything's going to boil down to this, is be outgoing. When you are outgoing and you do things that are outside of what everyone else is doing, I promise great things will come from that. In the fashion industry, how do you set yourself apart from everyone else that's trying to enter into this industry? The only thing that you have to offer that is different than what they have to offer is you. So you have to be authentically you. Let them know. Don't be afraid to tell people, this is what I want to do. Manifest that thing. Speak it into existence. If people are saying, I want to break into the fashion industry, break it down on like a 5-step scale for yourself. How do I break into the industry? That means I need to go to every fashion event that's within my reach. If it doesn't cost, if it's not overly expensive, I need to go to every fashion event that's in my reach. I need to reach out to the designers and stylists that are in my area and ask them, do they need any help? I need to be monitoring things. So when I do get the chance to help, I need to monitor the fashion industry and have true knowledge. And that's not just, if this is truly your craft, learn it. Don't just say I have an eye. Yes, I have two. So what? Don't just say I have an eye for things. Learn where trends are coming from. Learn why things are important. Learn what the next trend is going to be, and even take a look back in the past. If you can do all of those things, fashion is very cyclical, just like the world. Nothing's new. Things are always being recycled and coming back. So if you're able to catch a trend before it's getting ready to happen, when you're working with somebody and you say, hey, wide leg pants are about to come back in, make sure you put your client in that. And they put their client in wide leg pants, and then next thing you know, it's in vogue and they're talking about wide leg pants is the next move. You've transcended that client. You made that client be a mogul in that moment to somebody that wasn't necessarily going to have anything. Just, girl, I'm just wearing some wide leg pants. Now you're a fashion icon because you were ahead of the trend. So learn the craft, learn your craft, own your craft, hone your craft.
I love that. And I just saw some you said wide leg, but I saw some bell bottoms, like big leg. I'm like, give me those, because we had those so long back in the day, and now they are making a comeback with a vengeance, and I have to give me some because I absolutely love bell bottoms. But I know you've been in the industry for some years now, but what's like a lesson that you learned, like something that you wish you would have known starting out, that could have, made for a softer landing as you've kind of journeyed through your career so far? What's something that, like, a lesson learned that you like, man, I wish I would have known this starting out?
Oh man, the easiest thing is your peers are not your rivals. There's a lane out there for everyone, and I'll speak right now specifically to the Black community. Sometimes I feel like we do have a crab in a barrel type mentality, and as a result of that, we make things so much harder than they have to be. For example, if you're trying to figure out how to get around something and you're failing or going through it 6 different ways and it's not working out, it's okay to talk to your peer. It's okay to ask them, how did you navigate that? What would you do in this situation? Because what's going to happen is you're going to create a community. And with that community, you'll always have support. But if you're always that one stylist, designer, whatever it may be, insert entrepreneur here, whatever it may be that you're seeming to be so combative, then everyone else is still coming together while you're on the outside. And you're making your journey so much harder than it has to be, because the real winners are not afraid to share how they won.
Right. And to come up together, because it's knowledge, the sharing of knowledge is going to help all of us elevate.
I'm not scared of what's going to happen for Courtney. I'm not scared. You don't scare me, because what's for me is for me. And once people grasp that, I don't care. I can show you, I think we always put it in the form of pledging. Like, in pledging, they say, I can tell you what's going to happen, and you still wouldn't be able to expect it. In fashion or in entrepreneurship, I can tell you my plan, and you still won't be able to execute it because it's not for you. This is tailor-made, just like my suit. This is just for me.
I love that. Come on, and bring it right on back. This is tailor-made, just like my suit. But that is so true. I've seen very successful entrepreneurs say that same thing. They're like, I don't look to the left or the right and then compare myself to that, because I can give you the game, a blueprint of exactly what I did, and you're not going to get the results that I got, because we're two different people. The way we process things, the way we process information, our work ethic, our personalities, all those things are at play that bring that helps to elevate someone. So your trajectory is not the same as the next person. So don't fixate and focus on that. Just do what you can. So that's so true. So
And
many people. I think I saw Diddy talking about that.
find a mentor. Find a mentor. Find somebody who's ahead of you, who is where you would like to aspire to be and surpass. Don't just aspire to be where they're at, surpass them. Find a mentor and pick that brain. Now, picking brain ain't free, so you might have to do some work while you're picking the brain. But
Right.
find a mentor and somebody that you have seen them transcend, and it's okay to get under that wing. It's okay to get knowledge from them because all of us have learned from somebody. You didn't just figure out how to do this, whether it was school, whether it was a mentor, whether it was a job. You didn't just figure out how to do something. Somebody taught you, or you learned the skill from somewhere else. So send that elevator right back down when somebody teaches you a skill, and the next young person is going to come under you guys, and it's your job to make sure that you're doing that you're a mentor, that you're invested in somebody else's growth. Because while somebody else is growing, you're growing as a result of being able to sow seed into them.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that picking brains is not free. I think we have to look at it in a way of how can I add value to this person that I
Ooh,
want to
child.
ultimately receive something from, but like make their life easy. Like if you come not just asking for something, but saying, listen, these are the strengths that I have and I want to give this to you, because I respect what you're doing and I aspire to do something similar. Let me help you in this way. And in turn, you can be in those rooms with them and you can help them and understand and have the, while you're working alongside them and having coffee or whatever you're doing
Exactly.
for them, then you're able to get that information. So I'm glad you said that. That came to my mind because sometimes we just always like, you reach out and you're like, can I pick your brain? And it's like,
Ooh, I'll be
people.
honest. That is not it for me. That is not it for me. The game is not free, but it does not cost money. Like I really want
Right.
people to understand that the game is not free, but it does not cost money. It does. I don't need you to pay me for my time or anything of that sort. But I want you to also understand the value of my time. As an entrepreneur, when I'm giving you minutes, when I'm giving you time, when I'm giving you nuggets, I'm taking away from what I could be doing to further my business. And I don't mind doing that, but all I ask is that either you're giving that knowledge to somebody else, you're putting that knowledge into play, or you're adding value while you're getting that knowledge. Because some of the best moments that I've had have been with people that I've worked with. It was
Yep.
while working, they were dropping gems on me and I was picking it up. Or while I was doing something and I saw them do something and I asked them about it at a later point and we went through it and we did a simulation or something of that sort. Entrepreneurs have no time. If you are truly a full 100, and that's to say, not even, I won't even say, and when I say you're truly 100% entrepreneur, even you still 100% entrepreneur, even if you have a job. If you have a job, if you have a hustle, you don't have time to waste. That is your hustle. That is your livelihood. So the same way you would want somebody to respect your time at work because you have an output, because you have money that comes from work, this is my work. So respect that too.
Yes. Perfectly said. Perfectly. And we have to just be mindful of that. So that was exactly how I kind of like think about it as well. And you said hustle. So that brought me into the mind, which I said I wanted to talk to you about because you are a Los Angeles native. And,
Yeah.
I think pretty much most millennials hip hop community, the black community as well, have been reeling over the passing of Nipsey Hussle. And me personally, I did a completely different podcast episode about it, about him, and just kind of like dedicated to him. But for me, I wasn't familiar with him being, in Louisiana. And I'm not a rap. I don't like listen to rap consistently. I have my artists that I like, but I'm more of an R&B girl. So I wasn't really that familiar with him, but since his passing, it's like I've been listening to his music nonstop. And I have been binging on his interviews and things that he's talked about, and it just coincides with this particular platform, especially because he was all about ownership and inspiring and giving back and going after it and grinding and what's the blueprint: dedication, hard work plus patience. It's like all of that. And I just wanted to ask you specifically, like, how has that impacted you and going forward, like what have you taken from, because I feel like we have to take from this, like direct our energy into a positive way so his
Right.
death won't be in vain. Like, so what has that, what impact has his passing had on you specifically?
Whew. So first off, rest in peace, Nip. Um, I know my community, and this is no shade to anybody that's not from LA, but I know it hit differently for us. Anybody who's from here, Nipsey, like even if somebody wants to say Pac, first of all, Pac wasn't really from LA, maybe like in LA, but not from LA. But Nipsey is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the first people in our generation, that was about transcending. And the day that he passed, I knew that he got shot, and I sadly enough I chalked it up to like it's LA, people get shot. He'll make a song about it. He'd be good. And then when I heard he passed, it didn't hit me. It didn't register. The next day, I woke up and I was crying, and I
Yep.
cried. I cried a lot, And first of all, I really feel like I don't cry that much. So this was a big moment for me to be crying because Nipsey represented so much more than what I think people understand him to have represented for us. Myself being somebody who's transited from Inglewood, where cats was hustling next door, not on my block, next door to where I lived, police raiding and all of that thing. And just to know what I've transcended, it it hits home because it's of the same cloth, right? You want to
Right.
be a pillar for your community, but then there's a question of being a pillar at what cost? A lot of people always struggle with when I make it, do I go back to the hood? Nip was always of the hood, from the hood, made it. And you struggle with the mentality that 99 cats can love me and it only takes one to change the narrative. And that's sad.
Mm,
That's sad. And it made me really think about myself in this trajectory that I'm in right now. That one day could too be you. You never know what a disagreement looks like, and you just makes you navigate so much more cautious in your moves because you don't know who's hungry enough to, or hurting enough, even in that sense, to do something to make others hurt. Now, what I will say about that hurt is it set a fire inside of me because my friends, we were all talking about what does our higher self look like. And that question is so loaded because you have to know that a higher you definitely exists if you're willing to, birth it, if you're willing to do the work to come into it. So when Nip passed, it made me wonder, like, if I passed tomorrow, had I been living my higher life? So
mm-hmm.
in the positive that came from Nipsey's passing for me was that at that time we were having that conversation right before he passed, and it made me say, this is definitely solidifying the idea for me that I don't want to do anything, excuse my French, I don't want to do anything half-assed at this point in my life. Because
Mm-hmm.
anything I have has the potential to touch, anything I touch has the potential to turn to gold. Now, whether that's bronze or silver is really dependent on me, but it has the potential to turn to gold. So Nipsey's passing really made me say, like, every day, go get it. Go get it every day because tomorrow might not be another day. Like the excellence that I
Yeah.
believe of in Grayscale, the excellence that I believe of in my brand in general, public speaking, Grayscale, my podcast, anything of that sort that I am involved in, it's got to be to the greatest of my ability, to the best of my ability. Because if not, then Nip was in vain. And, a lot of
Yeah.
people, they're not, you kind of think that they're here to change, impact, and things of that sort. And sadly, people do so much more in depth than they do in life. Nipsey was great in life, but he transcended his reach. Just like you said, you weren't familiar with him. He transcended his reach and took that to 10 times the level with his passing because he put that story on
Yes.
front. He put that whole mindset in the front, and it really put a generation on hold, just like Pac in '90s put a generation on notice. Nipsey, I really feel like is putting the generation on notice that excellence has to be the standard at all times because you never know what's going to happen. So I can't leave my legacy with anything other than my best.
Yes. And that brings me back to a conversation that a topic that we discussed when we previously talked, and you mentioned that you, as well as some of your friends, were saying like, what would happen if we just, for 90 days we grinded it out and we were like just gonna make our, make excellence the standard. Like, what would that look like if we did not half-ass things? If we, in terms of our health, in terms of our
everything,
things that we're everything, what you're learning, what you're studying, your spiritual beliefs and being better mentally, and even your hustles and your passions and whatever projects you're working on, what would that look like if you started to do that? And you're making a habit of that. And I think even when we talked then, I told you, I was like, now you got me excited. I'm ready to like just go and start like really pounding the pavement.
And that's your job.
And this is just a yeah.
That's your job.
We have a responsibility to do that.
Listen, once I light my flame, it's my job for me to light your flame, and then once we have this Millennial podcast, we're lighting other flames, because the easiest thing that you can put it into perspective for is the gym, right? Is the gym a formality for you, or are you going to the gym to transform yourself, to transform your body? And what you're going to realize is that, am I going my hardest? Am I doing everything that I can? Because while I'm in the gym, if I'm here, I need to be giving my all. Otherwise, why am I wasting my time being here? Just to say that I was here? Nah, I'm going to go hard. And the thing that you guys are going to recognize about that 90 days, if you choose to embark upon that 90 days journey, is it's a wave. You can't be excellent in one area. It makes every area of your life rise. So I can't be going hard in the gym and then come home and be like, for sure, let me get this Carl's Jr. famous star. Like, it doesn't work like that because that's counterproductive. My excellence has to now transcend. I get to the point where I am eating right. And then I'm realizing, okay, if I'm eating healthy, then my mind needs to be healthy. So am I feeding my mind? Am I stimulating it with articles, books, and things of that sort that's going to make me get to the next level? Okay, so then my health, my mind, my spirituality, am I in alignment with whatever I believe is a higher being? Have I spoken with the higher being? Have I prayed? Have I made sure that I am in the path that is not my want, but their want? Because what you're going to realize is that in spirituality, it's not about you, it's about what you're here for. So sometimes you may think that what you want to do and what you're put on this earth to do may be two different things. So you have to recognize that. Yep. So everything rises. And with that, man, myself, my girl, we've all just taken, my friends, we've all just taken to it and said, like, listen, everything's got to be better. There's no room for mediocrity in this room. So if you're here, I'm lighting your fire, and then I'm lighting you. You won't even want to be mediocre around me, because what's going to happen is you're going to feel inferior. You're going to say, yo, how's everybody going hard and I'm the only one not going hard?
Exactly. Making those around you, because we're the sum of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And
so what's your average?
If somebody is around you. Exactly. It's like you can't be around someone who is going after it, grinding at full force, and you're just saying like, I'm okay with like the status quo. Not at all.
Right.
Like, you're going to feel like you're, like you said, inferior if you're not doing that. So I think we have an obligation to lift those around us and to make sure that his passing wasn't in vain at all, because it sparked such a fire in so many people. I've heard that countless times, and I've been like, usually I listen to like gospel music or something like kind of lighthearted in the morning, just because I used to listen to Sade or something in the morning, but lately I've been listening to Dedication every morning when I wake up. For whatever reason, it just kind of like gets me motivated, because I'm thinking to myself, man. Yeah. It gives someone that motivation to be like, dang, if Nip can do it, and I know he came from like the hood, he was scraping by the feet, and he figured it out. Like, if he can figure it out, and I don't know if he finish school or any of that, but you with with a full-time job and a college degree, probably a higher, you've not just gone to undergrad, but you probably had someone, I mean listeners, you have a degree that's like even above that. What makes you think that you can't do that?
Mm-hmm.
If someone else, it takes that grit, it takes that hustle. So I just feel like we have to rise above now. It's like it can't be in vain. Like at this point, we have to take it and channel all those feelings into something greater. And then his passing would have been monumental, I think. Just like his mom says, like don't wallow in it. Like take it and be okay. And so that's kind of how I'm living. But I had to ask you because I know it hits different for people who are from LA or living in LA, because if the rest of us are just really struggling and think about it every single day, I'm like, how am I wake up every day and at some point I think about this person and the impact. Like that's crazy to me. So yeah, I needed to get your opinion on that. But the very last question, which we've made it to the last question of the podcast. Hello to us.
Hey, come on.
Because, yeah, man, listeners, y'all don't know the struggle. But so the last question that I always like to ask every guest before signing off is, what is one piece of advice that you can give other millennials who are on their journey as well, who are just trying to get after it, to encourage them to stay motivated and stay the course? What would that one piece of advice be?
You said it earlier: dedication, hard work plus patience. I mean, Nip, listening to his album sounds so different now that he's gone. It's like, dang, this is kind of like, feel like Biggie ready to die. Like, like it seems like everything he was saying was more so just kind of like odes and nods and nuggets. It didn't seem like a present nugget though, but something that grew and like, okay, this is it. You have to be dedicated to your passion and whatever that is. And you have to know that the hard work is going to be there. But the patience, when the intersection of preparation and opportunity meet, you have to be ready. So make sure that you're doing the work. Do the legwork. Don't just see the outcome, see the process and enjoy that process. That's the thing. Enjoy the process. Don't necessarily be so caught up in the outcome. Enjoy the process, because this is what you're going to look like. You're going to look back on and say, this is what makes it that much better. When I tell my story and people are like, oh, that's so dope, I don't really look back on that and say, oh, wait a minute, this was pretty cool. But I didn't get a chance to enjoy that process because I was so focused on the next step that I didn't get to live in the moment. So enjoy the process, enjoy the beautiful struggle, and know that on the other side of that, greatness awaits you.
Yes. An ending to that is, it's a marathon, and the marathon must continue.
TMC.
Yes, absolutely. So where can our listeners, I know so many people are going to be like, where can I find him? Where can I follow him? So I can follow Grayscale, so I can know everything that he's doing, whatever comes out of speaking, of new ventures. Where can our listeners follow you on all things social?
All things social. You can find me on Grayscale IC. The IC stands for Image Consulting. I mentioned my podcast that I'll have coming out that'll be dropping very soon. It's called Read Between the Gray. You'll be able to find that on all social platforms. And hit me up if you guys have any questions. I'm always an open book, direct messages, text messages. My number on my website is my number. I'm not a hidden guy. I don't have Google Voice, anything of that. I'm just me. So, if you guys see me in the streets, talk to me, holler at me. You got any questions or anything about things we discussed today, definitely ask me any questions, messages, emails. My email is brandon@grayscaleic.com. And yes, I am a PK. I know you could definitely hear it. So if you had a question about that, let me go ahead and tell you, my father, grandfather, and grandmother on both sides, they're all preachers. So I know y'all hear that. But yeah,
come on.
Anything that you guys have, I'm an open book, man. Just hit me up. I would love to share my story, share my knowledge, and share whatever it is that you guys are looking for to get that inspiration to go to the next level for yourself.
I love that, and I can't wait to listen to your podcast because I already know you speak effortlessly anyway, so I know it's going to be dope. So I'll be tuned in whenever you release it. But with that, Millennial Dreamers, we are signing out. Peace. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. But before you leave, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. We want to know what you think about the episodes that you've heard so far. Let us know by subscribing and leaving a comment. And again, thank you for tuning in. We'll talk soon.